I am delighted to welcome Paul Alexander to the Brilliant Minds Bunker today. Paul is the founder and CEO of Beyond Analysis, a leading global customer insight group. So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to be talking about the power of data to transform businesses. Paul, as human beings, we hunger for information, but often lack the know-how in terms of evaluating it. How is data helping unravel big questions like when will the economy be back in business?
I think that you'd expect me to say this, wouldn't you? I mean, data to me is the secret to unlock everything. It unlocks, we used to say, it unlocks the value of human behavior when we first started the business. It is that secret sauce to be able to understand what people are doing, what they're not doing, and how they're behaving out in a market. And we are using data more and more, and we're generating more and more data. So being able to harness all of that information and being able to extract it is key. So there are volumes of data available. There are lots of nutty little insights that are around at the moment, but there are also big volumes of data that are just not being used. So I think one of the things that we have to do these days is just go look for those data sources, go and look for the secret source. And I often say that businesses and organizations that we work with are not looking for data in the right places, and that's often within the data that they have themselves. So what are people doing these days to understand what's going on? Well, we've been looking for something to actually try and help predict the turnaround in the UK economy. So where do we go for that data? Do you go to the traditional sources? Do you go to government sources? Or do you look for other things out there? So we've been looking at transaction behavior data. We've been looking at fuel transactions. We've been looking at share price data to see when the economy is kind of getting motoring, and helping people understand when they might come back to market using that kind of information. So it's pretty powerful stuff when you can get a hold of it, but most organizations that most people don't know where to find it or don't know where to look.
So, I mean, data is only useful if the insights are applied effectively. Can you give me any examples of sectors or businesses that are doing that well and how they do that?
There are many businesses that are doing it really badly. I can probably give you a lot more examples of where they're doing it really badly.
Okay.
I think an observation is that there are a few businesses that actually have organized themselves in a way that actually they know where the data lies. So they know what data is in their organization. There is a company that we work with that has 37 different data sets that over the last couple of years we've helped collate all of those different data sets together. Those are all of the different data sets that help them inform what's going on with their business, whether it be the Google data, whether it be the market data, whether it be their marketing spend data, lots of different sources of information. And I think the ones that are winning, the ones that I generally see that are winning out there, actually have a good idea of where their data is and where to spot the opportunities within that data. So aren't scrabbling around to go, oh, I've got this question, I don't know what my customers are doing, I don't know where my customers are, where are they going? The first thing that most people try and do is scrabble around and look for the data. And actually the chief executive of that business turned around to me a couple of months ago and said, so we had to send the data to one of their advertising agencies, and said, normally it would have taken us months to be able to do this. So, and now we've got the actually data in place, and we've been able to do that in a week. And that is really key. So the ones that I think are winning in this environment are the ones that have actually got their data in a good place. They actually know where their data is. They know how it can help them around their business, and actually then they can start asking questions of that data in the right way. So I'm not seeing, frankly, I'm not seeing many winners at the moment within the data space. I'm seeing a few people who can win and have the potential to win because they've got the data in a good place to be able to ask the right questions. The questions that they're asking of the data today are completely different to the questions that they were asking of the data a couple of months ago, and that's that's the challenge, is that you have to win by asking different questions.
That's interesting you should say that, because I was just going to ask you that very specifically. You know, companies using data pre and during lockdown, how can that help them post lockdown, specifically with customers? Give me an example of what kind of things you would do in order to get usefulness from that.
Well, the first thing I think I would recommend anyone does during this period is actually understand what your customers looked like before lockdown. So really take a good view of what your customers were doing beforehand, and how they were interacting with you, because what they're going to look like in the future is going to be very different. And that will help you in a couple of ways. It will understand the distance that you need to travel as an organization to get those customers back, or to understand those customers. It'll also help you understand risk. So if you look at your customers from a risk perspective, if you have to, as an organization, evaluate risk against certain customer groups, then it's really important that you understand how they behaved beforehand. Were they great customers beforehand? Would you have placed a bet behind those customers beforehand? And would you place a bet behind them again in the future? Because their credit rating may change. You know, the credit rating agencies and the government has said that we'll try and fix those as best as we possibly can. But the reality is, if someone asks for a loan holiday, you're always going to remember that they've asked for a loan holiday. But were they a good risk beforehand, and are they likely to be a good risk in the future? And how have we behaved as an organisation towards those customers during lockdown? How we have behaved will reflect in our customer behavior in the future. So I think those things, so look at the data beforehand, look at how they interacted with you beforehand, and try and understand how you think that they might interact with you in the future, how your interaction with them needs to change, because their view on the world and their view on life is going to change as well. So I think, and you can spot that within the data. We have the data these days, and it's out there to be able to understand exactly what might happen in the future and how those customers might interact. Where you acquire customers from is going to change as well. I mean, how people consume media, how people consume. I have to say that I am so looking forward to getting away from a TV screen or a monitor when I come out of lockdown. So are people going to be watching, YouTube and Netflix in as much volume as they are at the moment? I think that's probably a good question. That do they become addicted to it, or do they gravitate away from it completely? And then does media consumption change? So there are behavior changes that people will go through during this period. And look at the basics, price, their reaction to price promotion or price might change, and they might be looking for better deals, and they might be less fearful of asking for those deals in the future. Frankly, we're seeing a lot of that in data at the moment. Mm-hmm. Actually, people are phoning up, and people who would typically go into stores and have to go and feel the product before they buy a product. We're seeing those people pick up the phone because they're happy to talk to someone. They don't necessarily want to talk to someone to buy on the web, but they're happy to talk to someone, maybe someone who has that product themselves at home and can give them the confidence to buy. So there are ways we can interact with customers differently. We have to spot that. You have to look for that within the data that they're presenting to you.
And just turning towards sort of the global stage, this pandemic obviously is worldwide, and it's made me think a lot about the sort of interdependency we have across different countries. Have you got any specific insights from kind of tracking global data?
Yeah, we've got a lot of travel data, so we've got a travel booking data, and we can see what people are doing. I think people are trying to rebook, and that's an interesting behavior. I mean, most people want something to look forward to. They want to feel as if there is going to be an end to this at some point, and that they can look forward to a family holiday, or they can look forward to get on a plane again and get away from the family because they've been locked in with them for a long time. And we can see people trying to book, but those bookings are taking place and then they're cancelling quite quickly. And those are being cancelled because the lockdowns are being extended. And I think one of the global trends, and one thing that certainly the governments globally are not connected on is lockdown, and also telling people is coming out of lockdown and telling people about how different countries are coming out of lockdown. I found this the other day. We've got an office in Vilnius in Lithuania, and I'm really keen to get there and see the team. And we've got a new team for a new part of the business that we've launched. Really keen to get there as soon as lockdown is lifted. Now, the Lithuanian government have sort of mentioned that if you go to Lithuania, you may be in 14 days quarantine when you go. And when I come back to the UK, will I be subjected to 14 days quarantine in the UK? That's 28 days of time that I just can't afford to lose for a 2-day trip. So there's a global trend of people wanting to emerge from this and want to get back to some sense of normality, if there is going to be such a thing again. And we can see that within the data, people wanting to do things, and they're looking and they're searching, and some of them are actually booking. But there is that reticence and that nervousness because I don't think governments are being overt about what the restrictions mean for them if you want to travel. I found out that I can't visit our Australian office via an email from Qantas, because I'm a member of the Qantas Frequent Flyer program, and I found out I can't go there until the end of July, beginning of August at the earliest. But that was via a Qantas email. That was not via any kind of government update.
Do you think the way people think about data will significantly change when we get out of lockdown? Do you think there will be some kind of difference noticed?
Yeah, I think, look, someone, I was on a call with the NHS actually the other day, with a group around the NHS a couple of weeks ago, and one of the guys on the call mentioned this thing called VUCA. I don't know if you've,
Yep.
I mean, I need to say that reservedly.
Yeah.
But,
maybe VUCA.
Yeah, VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And that is kind of everywhere at the moment. It's the volatility that we are seeing is in every industry sector. It's across every aspect of society, and that leads to the uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity. And I do firmly believe that one of the things that can solve those things, especially for an organisation, a business in that kind of environment, is actually having the data at your fingertips to know what to do. Is knowing where your customers are going, knowing where you've got your which elements of the workforce to furlough, for example, or to put on the back burner for a while. How much money you can afford to make before you in certain areas, and how much you need to deliver to certain stores, and how you are going to deal with how many people are coming through your stores as well. And when you get back to physical stores, actually letting people through the door, and how many can you turn over, because actually that's going to affect your overall rate of turnover and how much money you can make. So no point in opening a store if you can only handle 20 people in an hour, and those 20 people are going to come in and buy a pencil. I mean, it's just, you need to be able to make sure that you're going to have the level of turnover that you would want to expect. So I think data is at the heart of trying to solve those problems. When most people I've seen that were spinning around in circles, going, what happens? What do we do? What do we do? How do we pivot towards digital? Well, you could quite easily, if you knew your customers really well, you could lift those customers up, look at which customers might behave with you online instead, and actually really seek to understand them, not just target them, but seek to understand them and understand how they might be helped by what you have to offer through this period. So yeah, it's
complex, but obviously the data is there to help help you navigate your way through that complexity, because it's facts, isn't it? It is actual facts. It's the way your consumers and your customers are behaving, so it's useful to look at.
There's an important point though. I mean, I see something within the talent, and we struggle, we have often struggled with finding people who can find the secret source within the data, because data is so, I'm going to struggle to say this, it is at such a great volume these days. It's at such a great volume these days that actually there is a real talent in being able to spot where the money's at and where the opportunity lies for the organization. So of the 300 things that you could be doing and the 3,000 things that people want you to do, actually there are probably about 10 that were going to make a difference. And being able to have that laser-like focus and have analysts who can have that laser-like focus on where is the money going to be at and how could you serve your customers better in the future, that's really, really key. And then spotting where the trends are, and and the pivot towards digital. We've done a couple of things in lockdown. Well, three big things in lockdown. We launched a new business. I think that was week one of lockdown. We launched a new joint venture with another company. We've launched a product called Iris. Well, we're launching that next week to the market, which is about by SIC code and postcode in the UK, how things are improving, and a predictor of how SIC codes by postcode are improving. And the other one is just having that laser-like focus on what can we do to transform a business and the organizations that we work with. So we've really honed in on where's the opportunity at and where could we help the organizations that we work with actually turn this from being the worst of times into not the best of times, but better than it could have been under the circumstances. So, we're not in the business of saving businesses, but we're in the business of helping businesses understand where to direct their efforts to make the best of a situation. And that's been really good. I mean, and seeing people understand that and appreciate the impact that can have in this time is really exciting.
Well, I think, people are looking generally for answers, aren't they? When we are in an uncertain period, we want to find answers that we can use to help us plan and to, give yourself a sense of direction. So I can understand when you prioritize and you're able to help a business find those answers, it must feel really reassuring. We're running out of time, sadly, but I just want to ask very quickly, just a final question, just from your sort of personal perspective, do you think you will be making any significant changes to your life as a result of what you've experienced during these, strange and unique times?
I think I will be certainly changing the way I work. So I've been, we have a wonderful office in a beautiful location. I will not be spending as much time there than I used to, and I think our communication has gone up. We need to watch that as well. But I'm going to be working from home in the morning, doing as many conference calls as I can, walking the dogs to work in the over lunchtime, working from the office in the afternoon, and then walking home or running home in the evening. So a little bit more exercise. I think one thing that I have spent a lot of time doing in lockdown is actually exercise. I've been doing a lot more than I would usually do. Thank God I bought a Peloton a few months before lockdown, because I've been on that nearly every single day, and it has been a godsend. It's been brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you've let your dogs know. I'm sure they'll be champing at the bit to get out with you at lunchtime on your commute to your office. But thank you so much, Paul. It's been a delight to speak to you today, and good luck. Speak soon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.